Okay.
All right, let's get this started. So first, I kind of want to figure out which way we're going with the sidewalk. I kind of think option 2 is probably best for us, but what do you think? What do you think the best and most cost-effective / prettiest option is, Liz?
Well, I know that we wanted to try and avoid going into people's yards as much as possible, which is why option 3 was even presented. But it honestly, we can do whatever you guys want. We can treat each individual poll as it goes, and you can tell us of the options what you liked best around each poll, and we can do a mixed match of that. It's really what the borough wants.
Option 2 keeps it in an absolute straight line, correct? And we're within the easement. Is that to my understanding?
It does keep it within a straight line. We are still within the borough's easement, but we are definitely pushing further into people's yards than phase 1 did. Yes.
Hey, can you share your screen with the options just to give everyone a perspective of?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up right now.
I'll make you a co-host, Liz, because I think you have to be to do that.
Okay.
Can I ask, just curious, I mean, one of the things that came up a lot when I was working on the sidewalk in my first term in council was there were some people that actually were for the sidewalk until they found out the degree to which it was cutting into their yard, and that made them opposed. And I think one of them actually threatened litigation because of arguing about where the right-of-way was. And I think just to be clear, my questioning earlier in the past few days, it's just about the due diligence, but there's nothing I want more than having this sidewalk put in. And I really don't care where it goes or what it's made of, because it's been long enough. So just so everyone knows where I'm coming from. But my question is just that, what conversations have been had with those people along this section of North Main, and how open are they to this, sort of inland path, which from a pedestrian perspective is actually superior, no question about it. From a PR perspective,
Well,
where do we stand with that?
I can speak to that a little bit because I know the previous sidewalk very, very well in detail. The issue with the last one was that there was an argument that previous council wanted to do a different right of way, which was a right of way from the 1800s, which would have actually put the sidewalk roughly like 15 feet into residents' properties.
Yeah.
Which was
the
issue
50
there.
foot. Yeah, the 50 foot as opposed to the 33 foot.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking like
Correct.
50 and 33. I'm talking the sidewalk would have actually been 15 feet from the end of their grass where the sidewalk would have been. With this plan, we're not discussing that at all. We're going with the standard 33 feet right away. We're well within the easement. We're not more than an extra 3 feet into people's property. We don't have to cut trees down, which is great. And it's technically, as you said, it is safer because it's 3 feet in. So if it was like 15 feet in, it's definitely something that would be pretty serious. But 3 feet in, we get to save all those trees. We save cost. It's safer. I mean,
I think it looks better, actually. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a better looking straight line. But then there are 3 obstructions, and I just wonder how this affects those. One is the cobblestones on 2 of the driveways, which probably will get affected no matter what. 2 is the person that has the 2 like sort of stone structures, and 3 is the hedges of the Ventrescas next to the Salentanos.
Yes. Yeah,
Those hedges will definitely have to come out. When we walked it 2 weeks ago, we looked at them and they're so old, they would never be able to be transplanted. So they would definitely have to come out. As for the pillars, Liz, did it touch the pillars or?
This new alignment, I think it's on the other side of the pillars. But I know that like when we sent along the conceptual plan back in December to the homeowners after we had put it together for the DCED grant application, the owners of that property just requested that like those be protected, and they wanted to keep them as much as possible. But it would be on their own expense to move them if that was what is needed. Like that's not something that the borough should be responsible for doing.
Because they are in our right of way.
Correct.
I understand. And regarding the hedges of the Ventrescas,
Mhm.
has there been any conversation? Because one option, just to talk to them about it, is that, I mean, we could move it back out to the road, or maybe they want us to go on the other side of their hedges, you know, and I mean, if they want, should we give them the option? Because I imagine they're going to be upset about that, because they've been upset about that in the past.
And, you know, people are allowed to be upset, but when things are in the borough's right of way, they don't have a whole lot of authority in that regard. But I understand not wanting to upset people.
Yeah, I'm not coming from a legal perspective. I'm coming from a good neighborly perspective of how we,
And
you know,
I would
maximize
say-
the benefit without the least impact.
Yeah, and so to your earlier question, this current alignment where we are pushing back into hedges and, you know, those pillars or what have you, this is not something that I believe the residents were explicitly shown. They have not seen anything other than that original concept plan, which was, you know, right up against the shoulder and was going to require the moving of all these poles. So no, I don't think, unless anybody has seen these plans, Paula, other than the council.
No, I just showed them to council until you guys decide which avenue you want to go to. I didn't show anybody else.
Okay, so I mean, because my fear is that it just takes one, if not more, of these residents to come together and do some sort of litigating activity, which at the very least could stop the project for this summer. You know,
Well, we definitely should contact the residents and ask them if they have any questions or comments, but
Yeah.
as we said, we're within the easement. We're not outside of the easement.
Right.
So there's really
Right.
no issue. I don't want to do anything that's going to negatively impact any resident. I'm
Right.
with you on that 100%. But at the same time, I also am not going to let anything like, you know, make the sidewalk project not happen this year, because if it doesn't happen this year, it's going to cost a whole lot more money next year. And, you know,
Right.
we have all these open grants and everything.
so I'm walking, you know, it's across the street from me practically. So I'm walking here right now, and I'm just going to turn my camera on so you can see it, because it's a bit of a crazy idea, but to give them the choice to have the sidewalk go on the other side of their hedges, because it would make for a really nice sidewalk and they could maintain their hedges. Is that something that we would consider, or should we not even? And I can show it to you. So you
Is it still
just,
within the right of way, Liz?
can just
No,
switch this around. I don't.
the right of way, we would need an easement from them to do that. The right of way line is right here.
I mean, they'd have to give it to us right away, basically. Let me just see if this. I don't know.
They'd probably like the hedges for the privacy and having the sidewalk go on the other side of the hedges.
So
Yeah.
it would be right over here, like straight through there,
So right up against that fence line.
pretty much. There's definitely like maybe trim a little bit of them back, but there's like a straight, you know, you literally could go right through.
I mean, that depends on how attached they are to the hedges and if they're gonna want people walking across their property when they're on the sidewalk. I think it's
Yeah.
very dependent on them. Whether or not we can do it, we can do whatever you want, but we would have to get an easement from them that is outside of the borough's right of way to push it.
Yeah. I think anything that involves an easement is going to delay the project into 22.
God,
Just
even if they
all-
were, okay.
Yeah,
All
even if they were completely, let's do it, just all the paperwork, everything involved, all the engineering would definitely push the project. And at this point,
Got it.
I definitely wanted to stay in the easement, because
Yeah.
that's, the thing
Yeah,
to do.
no, that makes a lot of sense to me because it would cause. So, and how far in is the right of way? Like you saw what I showed you. There's a pole that I can see, and then there's probably about 8 feet between that pole and where the Celentano's like iron fence starts. How far like in is the right of way?
It looks like the right of way is probably about 1.5 feet away from where their fence is.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So this entire row of hedges is in the right of way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. All right. So it's pretty, and you have that like very solidly documented, right? So if
Yep,
there's any
yep.
threat. Okay.
Yeah. When we went through this years ago, we took down all of the deeds, all of the old recorded information. So we have that in a folder. If anybody wants to see it, we have all of the old original documentation associated with all.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
was apparently such a big deal for phase 1.
Yeah,
And-
I
okay.
think Public Works should recommend option 2, and then definitely let every resident know, even if I have to, physically walk the street and drop a copy of the plans out in everybody's mailbox, and then just, if we have any comments or concerns, then we definitely field everyone, and if there's anything we can do, even if it's a slight additional cost to, make a resident a little happier, I'm fine with that also. Just
Would you be open to if they, and again, this is a matter of just kind of working with everyone's unique needs, but if they said they really, don't want to lose them, would we be open to putting the sidewalk against the road for that section?
No, I would say we would just have to, because then we can open up to other issues where if the sidewalk cut a little over and then a little back only in that one spot, and then somebody was riding their bike or kids were skateboarding or something like that, and somebody tripped or fell, it opens up to like another legal thing. But if anything that's within reason, I'm all for working with residents.
Got it.
And I have everybody's email, so I could email option 2 to everybody and let them know they can come into the borough to see full-size plans.
Yeah.
I would,
and actually, as I'm looking at it now, and I think even if I'm not sure if the drawing really reflects those hedges, because even if you were to put a 5-foot sidewalk along the road, those hedges look like they would be coming out. There does not seem any way to preserve them unless it was literally on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that we were definitely going to have to trim the hedges. So here's the option where we're up against the shoulder. And you would have to definitely trim those hedges.
Yeah, but even if we stayed with the original plan, we would have had to cut down well over a dozen trees. So it's like,
right.
What's better to lose the trees or lose the hedges? So it's like,
yeah, I understand.
Oh yeah, exactly. So this option 3 was trying to keep against the road as much as possible, and then only jogging out around people's driveways.
Yeah. And I just don't like you have to jut in and then jut back. And I think just if you're going a straight shot is way safer and more appealing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
In this instance as well, I believe we could get away with a 4-foot width since there would be a buffer.
Yeah, and that would be great. And that would save costs.
That would be great. Yeah, because there's not like enough traffic there that 5 feet is necessary.
So the only thing with going down to 4 feet though is that I think it's every 200 or 250 feet we would have to have the 5x5 turnarounds, but that's the same thing we did for phase 1. That is already what you guys have.
Yeah, that's fine. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, when it comes to reworking the plans and such and the submission to PennDOT for the HOP, we only have budget for one more round of edits. So I don't want to have the infrastructure group jump back into this until we've gotten comments back from the residents so that we can do it all in one shot and get it out to PennDOT. But we definitely want to get this into PennDOT ASAP because they technically have a month to review. They've been turning things around sooner, but we want to get this out to them sooner than later. So
okay, so if we Liz, if we were to agree with option 2, then we could send everything out to residents tomorrow, and then the next meeting we could officially vote on it and get
the June 1st meeting. Yeah, I think that. So you give people 2 weeks to give their feedback. If they miss that, then their SOL and you move forward and we finish up the design and get it in to get the HOP. So what infrastructure told me earlier today when I asked what the potential timeline would be, they said they'd have max 30 days for PennDOT to review the HOP. They don't expect them to have any concerns with the alignment change because we're still meeting all of their recommendations and requirements. The latest approval we would get would be at the end of June, and then we would probably need another 2 weeks to finalize the bid package based off of whatever PennDOT requires of us with the HOP permit. So we would be looking to going out to bid is most likely what.
And then when will we break ground?
August, and it shouldn't take more than 3 weeks.
Okay. All right. Yep. I want this done this summer, and I think everybody agrees with me on that.
100%.
All right. Great. All right. So let's do that. We'll give the residents, a couple weeks if they have any questions, concerns, or comments. I'm all for it, and if we can do with anything within reason, then I'm all for that also.
Okay, awesome. And then additionally, at this point, our only other critical path is working with Pico's gas department. They decided that it was not cost effective for them to realign the pipes that they have in the road where we need to put our storm drain on their own. They wanted to take advantage of us having to do trench work ourselves. We sent them a cost estimate asking to discuss cost sharing with them, and we have not had success hearing back from upper management. So we're going to keep trying, but I'm not sure if this is something where if we could get any kind of pressure from our representatives for people to work with us on this. Like the fact that they're going to try and do this while we're already doing construction saves the money because they don't have to get their own permits, so they should be more than willing to cost share with us and to meet our schedule.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I will talk with our reps and see if there's anything we can push along to get that an answer sooner, because I don't want anything to slow us down and I don't want to incur any costs because of that.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Can I ask a question? The stone pillars at the one property, are you able to move that, or is that something the residents will have to move on their own?
That would be their own responsibility since it's in the right of way. We can certainly protect them and make sure not to destroy them or anything, but it would be their responsibility.
Okay.
Unless the borough wants to take it upon themselves. I just don't know if you want that liability.
Yeah, I would say let's hear from the residents first and then take it from there to see what their feeling is on it.
Does anyone remember which property it is? I don't at the moment.
Yeah, it's right there, Rosalie Damiano, but that's her maiden name. It's Brazzi now, Brasie, something like that. It's 116.
And 16. Okay.
Right there.
They're not marked on this particular plan set, but they are marked in the so we have that. But yeah, they're right around here. Exactly where the sidewalk is now going to be. Okay. All right.
So what is this with grants, Liz?
Yes, so I emailed you all that so you can pull it up and take a look. Oh, Margie Baker, am I the only one that can admit people?
No, I did.
Okay, good. So we have a couple of grant opportunities coming up in the next few months. So I sent you the ones that are currently open and what their deadlines are and some suggestions for projects. So the first deadline coming up is at the end of June, and it's Growing Greener Grant, which is the same grant that we currently have for the EAC Watershed Restoration Project. But that type of grant has a myriad of applications specific to stream restoration and stormwater protection and things like that. And it might be an avenue for the borough to begin looking at the erosion issues in Silver Creek. Obviously, that has been highlighted recently by what has happened at the ML7 parking lot expansion and the eroded gully that it caused. And they are in the process of mitigating that, but there's more erosion in that area than just where the wall was discharging. And while out there on these site visits, you can see that some of the residents along Van Horn are experiencing parts of their property kind of sloughing off into the creek. So taking care of that and stabilizing it is something that the borough has to be involved in, but not necessarily something that you have to brunt the entire cost of. And I think a grant like this is definitely a good thing to go after. And because this erosion is occurring on the property of the country club, on ML7, all homeowners, I think that's an opportunity to have everybody come together and split the cost of the match. I don't think it should be all on the borough. But you definitely need to be involved when it comes to actually doing that restoration project. None of these individual people can do it themselves, kind of thing. Might as well, I don't know if Google Earth shows the creek very well, but I can see. I believe I'm just sharing my screen and not the document. So I see the Google Earth starting to pull up.
Yep.
All right, cool. Is Horn with an E at the end? Why is it not showing up?
I think it might be.
Yeah. Couldn't understand this location. Come on, Google Earth, you're letting me down. Let's just Yardley, PA, and then we'll go to it. All right, you guys ready for the zoom in?
Wow. Sorry, I had to say that. Sorry.
Pretty nifty. Pretty nifty. Okay, let me get my bearings here. We've got Main Street. And then there's the country club in the parking lot. And yeah, it's kind of difficult to see, but Silver Creek runs along. So the Silver Lake, and then it like goes through the country club, and then they have a couple of dams on the country club property, and then there's a culvert right here, and then it just kind of turns into this creek that goes around, and then eventually discharges into the canal right here. And so all 4 of these properties have experienced erosion issues along the bank of the creek closest to them, but also some of their properties actually include the stream itself in their property lines, but there is a stream easement because it's, you know, a body of the US kind of a deal, and the responsibility of the borough. So that's due at the end of June. So if you guys want to apply for a grant for that, we would need to make that decision at the next council meeting, and then put it together, get the resolution approved at the second June meeting, and then submit it by the end of the month.
Any idea how much it'll cost to apply for it, Liz? For your time?
To just put the grant together, the Grow and Greener one is a little bit more involved than any of the other grants that we typically do. So I would have to go back and take a look at all of the attachments that they do. I haven't personally done one yet, but I can get you guys an estimate for that probably tomorrow. I can talk to Kelly, our grants person, and figure that out and let you know.
Okay.
But like I said, you don't have to make that decision until the June 1st meeting.
Liz, when you talk about erosion, what type of erosion?
So it seems like just the amount of flow that's kind of going through that area, and because it curves quite significantly right here. There's a property here when we were out there taking a look at the ML7, one of the houses, and I think it's this one, they have a tree house, and it's near like the edge of their property, and you can see that the bank is just completely just sloughing off, and it's almost completely vertical in some places. So it's just, it happens in creeks like this in areas that have become developed, where all of a sudden you're getting much more runoff than you used to, and the banks don't have an opportunity to expand to handle the extra flow, and so it just starts to eat away. You see this happen in urban areas. So what is potentially armoring or even redirection of the flow to keep it from getting worse.
Who owns that property that where your hand is? Oh, not there, but I mean on the back, behind the back of their property lines. Who's the owner of that property?
It butts up against ML7.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So ML7, and like they have another, other than the current issue we're dealing with that we refer to as headwall 1, there is an existing outlet structure right about here that dumps into the creek as well. That's for a very, very long time.
So is that typically done that basically the borough owns none of this property, that we would be paying for it to be repaired? Is that typically how that's done, or would the property owners pay for the match, et cetera, and costs?
That is what I'm suggesting, that you get all these disparate property owners to pay for the match, and the borough just be the cheerleader of the project. Like if it gets to the point where it's a safety issue, then it could fall on the borough needing to do it anyways. So this is more or less trying to get ahead of the issue, acknowledge that it needs to be addressed. We've had some municipalities that have had to brunt the entire cost, and have had to do stream restoration projects against culverts that are up against municipal roads, and they have to for the safety of the road and that bridge crossing, even though where the restoration activities are occurring are on private property. So,
And Liz, is there surveys that show that this is definitely private property? That it's on the Van Horn residents' backyard?
based off of what we can see from the plans provided by ML7, that shows their entire property and where the property lines are of the Van Horn residents, it seems that the entire area is either Van Horn or ML7. It's a stream easement that is shown as well. And it's pretty gray about who's responsible for the stream easements. But as I said, we've seen other municipalities having to be responsible for that.
Has the parking lot expansion exacerbated the situation?
That is currently up for debate. I mean, what happened with the outfall here that created all this erosion and stuff, yes, that's 100% an issue. But they did not technically increase the amount of flow that's going to the creek at this point. They just increased the velocity of the flow. So right now, their remediation plan is to remove this head wall, move it back to where it used to be, regrade in a swale, and then the current that they sent us on Friday doesn't have any energy dissipation methods, so we're going to request that they put that in. So it should no longer be adding or contributing to the issue. It's just going to be the existing problems that are coming from off of the country club. But the country club is in the middle of a stream restoration project themselves and repairing their dams. So the amount of flow leaving the country club might also lessen. But there's already existing erosion issues. So as soon as it destabilizes, it's just going to continue to get worse because it's already destabilized.
So there's nothing we can do to stabilize it now?
We could definitely go out and put down matting, like erosion control blanket mattings, and seed it and try and stop what's happening. That's pretty easy and pretty simple. We would have to talk to the conservation district to see what kind of permitting they would want us to get for something like that. But that could also just be something that we encourage the residents themselves to do. Like, hey, this is something that you could do on your property to prevent this from getting worse. And they could certainly go out and do that themselves.
No, I'm looking at the parcel maps while we're talking on the Bucks County. I don't know if the floodplain viewer, I mean, it has parcel numbers.
Yeah.
And it seems like those properties actually, I didn't realize they go to the other side of the creek, almost
Yes,
all
they
the way
do.
to the parking lot.
Yes,
So
they
it
do.
seems like, I'm not sure where the erosion is, but it seems almost like the erosion is probably not part of ML7, at least unless it goes back that far.
So there's erosion on both sides of the bank.
Oh,
And
okay.
Emerson definitely has discharge points along that side of the bank that could be exacerbating issues on that side. But the majority of the erosion that I saw is on the side of the bank that is against the Van Horn properties.
Okay.
Real quick, Paul, we're not cutting into general government's time, are we?
No, general government got canceled tonight.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay.
Sorry, we can
Mhm.
keep moving.
I just noticed that too. I was like, oh no. Yeah, I mean, the Growing Greener grant, we can use it to first investigate and figure out the extent of the issue and then determine what's the best way to move forward with it. And then it can also be used for the actual construction. It's a pretty varied grant. We could decide to not deal with this year, but maybe at least have RVE do a thorough inspection of that stretch of the creek and just get a catalog of it so that we don't have to rely on the homeowners and that the borough is just fully aware of what the extent of the issue is at this point in time.
Yeah. It's definitely something to look into just because I mean, it is an issue, and anytime there's grant money available, I'm all for that. I don't know. What does everybody think?
I'd just be cautious. I mean, I do think a grant is a great opportunity, but I do think, once the borough is remedying things on private property, I would worry about, opening up a can of worms there. But that would be my concern.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, and it might be a question worth asking Bucky about to see, where we want to draw a stance. Like it's private property. But when it comes to things like natural resources and such, there are some that the municipality is responsible for making sure it's not creating an unsafe condition.
And because it's on private property.
This is a little bit like the elevations. I mean, I think we basically, yes, we could do nothing, but I think as we all live here, we all share in the problems that happen in our little borough. And if we could reach out to these people and in a conversation and say, look, this is a situation, this is a potential road we could take. Are you interested? Maybe that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
And take the temperature there and see what the interest is. And, if there's interest, great. And if there's no interest, then we'll just, deal with it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, the borough can certainly leave it until it becomes an emergency situation per se. But yeah, it's on Van Horn residents' property. All the issues that are occurring, it's on their properties.
And do you think we're able to get grants for private property? I thought that was an issue.
You have to have agreements. So they would
Okay.
have to be partners with us in the application. We would have to have letters of authorization to do work on their property. So the situation is either, leave the residents up to their own devices to deal with the issue, or try to get them to group together and have them take care of the match, and the borough can just be in charge of it and run the actual construction and the effort of it.
Yeah, we might want to put a pin in that right now. That seems like a lot of moving parts for
Yeah.
not sure, if it's going to be turning smooth when they're all assembled together.
Yeah. So I think at this point, the prudent thing for the borough to do would be to get a record of what it looks like. And maybe that's something you can just have Wes go do and just take pictures along that stretch, just so that you have records of what it looks like right now. And just see how things progress forward with the ML7 issue. Maybe the residents will be satisfied after that work is completed and they won't be requesting more. But, I saw erosion on the other side that I know is not going to be addressed by this ML7 remediation plan.
Okay. All right.
And then the other grant opportunity, due in July, is DCD's next MTF grant. I recommend that we apply for 3 of the sidewalk project.
Yep, I'm absolutely in agreement with that. We should start moving that forward, just because we're going to keep going with the sidewalk if we can.
Yeah. So again, not due till the end of July. So we don't need to, move through putting the application and the resolution until next month, but definitely wanted to get everybody aware of it. It just opened up like last week.
So maybe on your next engineer's report, we'll bring it up to all of council so we can discuss it and then make a motion to apply for that.
Okay, that sounds good. And then the last one is the Arlo Grant. We have applied to that in the past for some safety initiatives that a former council member hoping to push forward, and we were not awarded it. And then we haven't touched those projects since. Does the borough have any interest in reaching out and finding out how we could make our application more competitive and trying again? This was for the flash lights, the crosswalks, and additional crosswalks.
Yeah, I don't think the flashing lights are going to fly here from at least what we talked with PennDOT about. But if it would cover, so do we have to have like a shovel-ready kind of project to apply for this? Because I know we need to do for the crosswalks from the last traffic study that we ran.
Mm-hmm.
It showed that in front of the commons was a definite possibility, but at the other end of the borough, it wasn't at all because there wasn't anywhere.
We didn't have the foot traffic. Yeah, we didn't.
So like, would this be something we could apply for before we had a study, or will we have to have a study to show that it's viable to put a crosswalk in?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, and maybe that's part of why it was not as competitive. I will look into that about what we should have. So studies / shovel ready.
Yeah.
For Harley. Okay.
Would this cover decorative crosswalks like the one that we lost when South Main was paved, and potentially doing that on Main and Afton?
Yes, it should.
I think that would make, the nice thing about those is not only do they help, they look good, they help make the place more pedestrian friendly, they help slow cars down, but also they last longer than the paint.
Yeah.
So there's an economic advantage too. I think if we could get them to pay for those, Wouldn't that be cool? Does anyone, what do you guys think?
Didn't Taylor say they lasted a lot less long? Like the ones at Washington's Crossing, that they get beat up pretty quickly? I thought she brought that up one time we discussed it. But
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think that's because it's a thick surface. Maybe if it was the wrong surface or too much traffic, but those are used in like major metropolitan areas where there's a lot of traffic. And I mean, maybe Liz knows more about them, but I'm guessing they use the wrong surface if they didn't last long.
Yeah, it depends on how they were installed. Like if they're not properly installed and if they stamped them too late after it was poured, like, yeah, they can disappear sooner than they should.
I agree with the aesthetically, it looks great and does give another visual marker, but I just be curious more about
I think they cost like $5,000 a piece. I think the last time we did them, maybe Paula remembers, I think they were like around $5,000 each row. So like an intersection is like $20,000.
Whoa, really?
I think I remember that was the price. Maybe it's less if you're doing a whole intersection, but
Maybe. All right, yeah, we can certainly look into that. That tentatively they have that scheduled to be due July 1st, because that's what it was last year, but they actually have not announced the due date for the Arlo grants. We're still waiting for them to formally announce that. So I guess I can bring that up as well at the June 1st meeting in tandem with the DCED grant. It's the Arlo grant. We'll open it up to discussion to all of council.
Yep, I'm all for that.
All right, and then I will hopefully get answers from the grant coordinators about if a study already has to be completed for certain things, or if it has to be shovel ready for it to be worthwhile.
All right, sounds good.
All right, cool. I don't think that. Paula, for college, did that floodplain letter go out to the resident that the additional driveway apron is not allowed? Was that actually issued? Okay, all right. Then we will call them to discuss the refurbishing of their existing apron and how they need to do the sidewalk around that to tie it in properly. Did they respond to that letter at all or no? You're muted.
Not as of yet.
Okay, all right. Good to know. And then in regards to the ML7, their current plan to move that existing head wall back to where it used to be. Is that enough from the borough's perspective? We're going to ask them to put in those energy dissipators as well. I think that is necessary instead of just, putting it into a swale and letting it do what it was previously doing. I think they need to have those dissipators in there. But they did send us those calculations on Friday, and the existing underground basing did not handle the additional flow. So that option, as such they suggested, is out in the field with all of the homeowners, is not something that they can actually do. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to make sure you think that's enough for us to ask for them to do, that they're going to remove the flow from the area that it currently is, put it back to where it was, but then also slow down the flow of it and not just put it back to the original situation.
sounds reasonable.
Alrighty. I think that's it, unless anybody has any questions. I'm not planning to speak tonight. I think we went over everything that we needed to.
Okay. No, I think we covered anything. Does anybody have any questions? Anyone?
Where's the cats at, Liz? Don't you usually have cats in the background?
She's asleep right next to, she has a bed on like a whole portion of my desk is cat bed. So she's curled up asleep,
All right.
jealous of her lifestyle.
Good for her. All right. Well, I'll officially call this meeting. I will see everybody in about 15 minutes.
Sounds
Regularly
good.
scheduled council meeting. Bye, everybody.
I